Hi, my name is Henry. In the last lesson, I showed you how you can quickly make your model using the software. Now, in this next lesson, I will be going deeper into how you can make model with the software, and I'll also show you how you can have a total control over your model. Although, as you can see, we're able to create the panels, and then automatically we created the various floors and the roof level. Okay, now in the next lesson I'll also show you how you can have a total control over the model. Of course, your model might not be as simple as this. I'm going to show you again how you can make the model be as you want it to be. Okay, so let me go back again. Let me create a new project, and then I will make another model. Okay, as I said earlier, if you remember, I said it's always better you set your default settings. You can set the default setting either by clicking on the little icon here and then click on your edit current floor default setting. Okay, that is the default setting for the current floor. Now if you want to edit the default setting for the next floor, then you might have to click on this, but we come to that later. Again, you can access the same thing all the way from here. You have edit current floor default setting, and again you have set next new floor default setting. Okay, so now we want to edit the default setting for the current floor. Okay, let me do something different this time around. Let's assume that our imposed load is 2.5, assuming that we are designing an office complex. Okay, of course you can also control the depth of the beam and all the other parameters, because actually it's from this default that the software used to map out the entire layout. Okay, I will apply changes to accept my changes. Now the next, I'll create my panels, and again I said this is my ground floor. It's my ground floor level. Okay, it's my ground floor. Okay, and as I said again, the ground floor is starting at 0 level. Now if your starting floor, let's say you have a basement, you can as well change this to minus. It can be minus 1350 or minus 6300, depending on whatever the starting floor level is. Okay, then I will make my model. I'll pick a rectangular tool. I can always start from anywhere, but it's always good to give a good space from the origin, in case you have panels that might go up on top. Okay, for this simple stuff we're doing, let me start from there. And as I said, you can always click between 2 points. You don't need to actually try to measure it as you are trying to drop the panel. It's always better to click between 2 points and then change the panel width to what you want it to be and the panel height to what you want it to be. Okay, so that's panel 1. And of course, if you want the panels numbers to be showing as you're modeling, you can just put it. Okay, so I'll go back to modeling. Then, as I said earlier, you can just select the next part, the selected the panel you have, and then you can reference panel, copy selected panel to right. And then when you copy a panel, remember I said it's all yours to manipulate. You can change the width, you can change the height however you want it, depending on the shape of your arrangement, or depending on the shape of the panel or the geometry of the panel. Okay, so but in this case I want the height to remain 3000 and I want the width to remain 4000. Okay, so then I can select, remember I can always click on copy last panel to right, and it will just take it there, and then I can still have this. Okay, select another one, this one, take it bottom, copy last to right, copy to right. So that is how easy you can build your model. Okay, remember as I said, you can always change the copied panel once they are created. You can change the width and the height. Okay, the width basically refers to the x dimension of the panel, and the height refers to the y dimension of the panel. Okay, and if you also notice, all the parameters that we defined from default is what is working with. And you can see our impulse load is 2.5 according to what we defined. Okay, now once you have created your panel, the next thing is to copy for the subsequent floors. Okay, and then remember, this is the ground floor. The ground floor is not actually a structural element except if you have the raft beams. Okay, so but why we usually use the ground floor as starting floor, or whatever is the starting floor, so at the end you can copy the floor to the next level. It's just easier, so you don't go back after doing the first floor, you go back to do the ground floor. I mean, it's a little bit clumsy. Okay, but as I said earlier, you can start off your ground floor as if it's your first floor. By the time you copy it to the first floor, you can now come and edit the ground floor to however you want it to follow the line of the foundation trench. Okay, because actually the software uses the ground floor to generate the foundation trench line or the foundation layout. Okay, so that's by the way. The next thing now, in the previous lesson we did, we used copy multiple. Now, but in copy multiple, it basically assumes that the floors are the same. Okay, but even at that, it's also possible for you to copy multiple, just like we did earlier. You know, it's possible for you to copy multiple, and then you come back to the individual floors and edit them one after the other. A very good example, I can add another panel here. This is the previous work we did. I can add another panel, and you can see it appears only in the second floor. If I go to the first floor, it's not there. The ground floor, you can see my roof is not there. Okay, so and it's just there at the second floor. Okay, now if you use copy multiple, you can actually come to the individual floors and edit them wherever they vary, you know, in arrangement. Okay, but the what I'm trying to show you now is how, of course, if you want to create each of the floors one after the other, so that you can be able to control so many other parameters. A very good example, you might wish to control the impulse load on the floor. You know, could be the impulse load varies and you wish to control them. You know, you can add the panels one after the other. Okay, so then of course I can create my beam span. I'll create the beam. Okay, the next thing now is for me to copy the floor. Now in the software in Quick Structure 7, we don't usually more often create new floor, because when you create a new floor, the software will just add a fresh new page for you. That means you have to build the panels all over again. But rather, we usually use more often, you can copy a floor. You copy and create a floor. For instance, the software will copy the reference floor or the floor where you are, and then copy it and use it to create the next floor. That means it will copy all your panels, it will copy all your beam, it will copy all your beam span. Okay, so that is the way we usually do it. So in this case now, and remember, before you copy the next floor, okay, the next we need to do is to copy our next floor. In this case, the first floor. Okay, now you can actually change the height, the floor height of the first floor by changing the next new floor height. Okay, but in this case, let's assume it to be 3150. The other thing that you can also take a look at is the default for the first floor. Okay, but in this case, I can select the ground floor defaults and then change them where necessary. If the impulse load is not the same, you can easily change the impulse loads. Okay, but in this case, so assume they are the same, then we can go on. All I need to do is to come to copy floor, and then I will now click on copy stroke create floor. So that's it. So I have my first floor, which is apparently is floor 2. I will just come change the name to first floor. So this is my first floor. As you can see, the software have copied all the panels, all the beam span, and all the beam. Actually, if you want to see the beam span separately, you can just uncheck this. You can see the beam span is usually the orange line. I will tell you more about the beam span as we go on. Okay. Then you can see I've copied my first floor, and as you can see, it's all done automatic. Then I can also copy the next floor, and as I said earlier, if the floor is different, you can change the panels as you want. A very good example, I can change this panel. I can change the width. Assuming if the width of this my panel tray is now 5000, I can change it. You can actually manipulate the panels however and anyhow you want. Okay, it's all yours to play around. And of course, we come to how you can edit the beam arrangement later. Okay, but for now, let's just go on in our discussion. Now, the next thing we talk about is you can create the second floor. To create the second floor is just the same thing. If you want to change the floor height of the second floor, you can do it from here. And then, of course, after that, if you want to change the default, you can do it by calling up the default for the next floor default setting. Okay, but let's assume the defaults are all the same. I'll just come copy floor again, and then I have my second floor. Then I'll just call this second floor. Okay, this is exactly the same thing with what we did earlier, but in this case we're just going floor after the other. This approach is very good, assuming if your floors you have the GAs are all different, although as I said, you can achieve the same thing by using copying multiple floor, later editing each of the floors however you want them to be. But for instance, you just want to show you a different approach that you can use to achieve the same thing. Okay, so now the next thing again, I can now copy the roof level. Okay, now all I need to do is to copy floor and then call it my roof level. But in this case, I need to change some things. First of all, these panels have to be roof panels. Okay, and then let me also spend time to talk a little bit about, although I will come back to it much more later. A panel can actually be anything. It can be a slab panel, it can be a cantilever panel, it can be a roof panel, it can be a raft panel, it can be void. But we will come back to this much more in details. Now, but in this case, at the roof level, I want the panels to be roof panels. Now, before I do the next thing I need to do now, if I want to, I can also edit the roof GK and the roof QK. Now, remember, this is the roof GK and this is the roof QK. Basically, what the software does is this. It will see your roof level as an imaginary slab. Then it will transfer whatever you specify as the roof GK and the roof QK, just the same way you distribute loading when you are distributing loading for your slab. But in this case, it does not need to do slab loading. It just uses the roof GK and the roof QK to distribute, to get the load from roof that we get on to the roof beams. Okay, now another interest is this. I might wish to change the depth of the roof beam at the roof level. The depth of the roof, the depth of beam, I can make it 300. Okay, so that's it. The next thing I need to do now is go to floor properties, is to turn all these panels to roof panels. I will just click on floor properties, and I'll click on change current floor panels to roof panels. It's asking me this operation will change the current floor to roof. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. It's just telling me I can go back and change the default, like the depth of the beam and all the rest, but I don't want to do that. So that's it. I've already done that earlier. But if you have not changed the default at that point, you can actually click yes, and it will bring up the default settings. Then you can change the defaults. Okay, so you can see it have turned the panel to roof panel. If you look here under panel type, you can see they're all roof panel. That is why they are not shaded. Okay, so that is how you can create the individual floors. You can see now we did them floor after one after the other. First of all, the first floor, the second floor, and then the roof level, assuming that we have a two-story building. Now, the next thing will be to create the columns. We have many ways to do that also, but the first approach, if you go back to modeling, you can see under action, if you notice, we have used action to create the beam span and the beam. Now I can also use action to create my column. I can say create column below the current floor. Apparently there is no column below the ground floor, so the software won't even respond, but I can go to the first floor and I will say create column below the current floor. So that's it. Or I can also go back and say create column for the entire floor. Okay, so but let's assume we'll create column for the below the current floor. Here I can also come and say create column below the current floor, which is the second floor. Now down to my roof, I will say create column below the current floor. So you can see I've created all my column and I've achieved the same aim. Let me reduce the scale so you can see I have the same effect. Okay, now as I stated earlier, you can actually create the column for the entire structure all at once without going from floor to floor. Okay, just click on create column for the whole structure and all the columns are created. Okay, so that is how you create floors one after the other. It all depends on how you want to go about it. You can create floors using create multiple. You can actually use create multiple floors, or you can create them one after the other. Okay, so that is the second approach in creating your floor. Now I'll also show you another approach on how you can create the floor, but in this instance, I mean, it's all about assuming if you have the coordinates. You just create the coordinates and then you put in your floor straight ahead. But the easiest one is the very first one, whereby we created the ground floor and then use copy multiple to map out, and at the end you can always change. That is the most easiest thing to do. Okay, in the next lesson I will show you how you can use the grid to create your panels, just similar to what we have done. Okay, so that's where we stop this lesson for now. Thank you.